Hey everybody. No, that is not a picture of hay or anything like that you're looking at. That's actually my lawn. I've been debating on whether I was going to do any videos this summer or not, so I thought I'd better just to tell you where we're at. But we're in the middle of what we call a drought, and in Nova Scotia it's kind of a rare thing for us to have a drought. Now what I mean by drought, according to our expert people, you know, what are they called? I'm going to spin you around here. Hey everybody, meteorologists. According to our meteorologists, this is the worst drought that Nova Scotia's had in 100 years. So before 1900. We've had approximately 60 millimeters of rain since the 1st of May. Where normally we would have probably 100, and I think it said 190 to 200 millimeters of rain. In the last 7 to 8 weeks, we've had nothing. We've literally had, I think they measured it at 1.2 millimeters in the last 8 weeks. Now on top of that, we've had high 20s and low 30s with a humidex of mid 30 and 40 for the last 8 weeks. So really hot temperatures, especially for us being a maritime climate, really hot temperatures. So most of my garden is kaputs this year. You'll see the corn is starting to come. I tried to water the garden for a bit early on, and I realized, well, once my well went dry and I started to have to lug water for the house, that you just cannot physically lug enough water to keep a garden alive. So you see my corn in all different stages, because I had to replant my corn 3 times. So I have some that's blossoming now, some that's half growed, and some little fellows that's just getting started, like down there. And that was the story of this spring, was replant, replant, replant. My dill, I replanted 3 times, and I got 2 stalks of dill. Summer savory, replanted twice, and I got 3 or 4 stalks of summer savory. The spring onions, even though it's not spring, seem like they're doing okay. I have no idea why. Parsnips, replanted twice down this row, and they're non-existent. Now this won't be all negative. There are some positives in the middle of here. The leeks. The leeks are planted in quite deep, so they're actually growing quite well. I've never watered them. You'll see a few here on the edges dying, but I haven't put a drop of water on them. And this here is my espaliers, and they have pears on this year. I planted my espaliers 4 or 5 years ago, and this here's my actual first crop of pears. So that's really exciting. I'm dead happy with that. You can see these are golden russet Bosch. I think if I pronounced that right. Probably didn't, but that's okay. So I actually have pears on this year, so that's exciting. Tomatoes are doing okay, but I'll show you some other tomato plants and they're dying. They're only half the size of what they should be, and some down here are just completely dying. You can see yellow leaves on the bottom. We're hoping to have 20 millimeters of rain tonight, which will be a godsend. My potatoes started out well, but I can't water my potatoes. I just don't have the water, can't lug the water for it. But they're starting to dry off and yellow, and it's a month before they should be doing that. So I'm hoping this rain will save my potatoes and actually get some potatoes sized up. If we don't get the rain tonight, all in the last 2 months have been promising us rain different times, and they just never delivered. Every time it got close to it, it just dried up and stopped. Cucumber patch, replanted 5 times, and they're barely growing. Squashes, after the second replant, actually aren't doing that bad. You can see there's a little cherry tomato, and he's just suffering for thirst. So I'll just do a little quick walk around. In the last 3 weeks, we've been really watching the drought take a hold. You can see down through the woods, the trees are changing color and they're turning yellow. And what they've been doing is turning yellow and then going right to brown and crispy. So it's getting so dry that mature trees that have been in the ground for 20 plus years are actually just dying for lack of water. That's all I can think it is, other than their roots just aren't down deep enough and they're dying. My onions I tried to water a little bit because it was a small patch onions, but you can see my onions are falling over now and starting to dry up, so it's showing signs that they should be ready to pick, but there's no bulbs there. They're just little tiny things that have nothing going for them. And this is kind of the story. This is a little plum tree that's grown. You can see the yellow leaves on the plum tree. So this rain, if we get the 20 millimeters tonight, will be a saving rain. On the positive, I said it wasn't going to be all negative, even though the garden is kind of negative this summer. The worst I've had for a while anyway. My first apples on the tree. I think I have 7 or 8 apples on here. This is what we call a Gloucester, and it's a late apple, so it won't be ripe for quite a long time. But that's kind of exciting, getting my first apples on the tree. I've already had a few transparents, but if you can see the bottoms of these trees, if they're looking bare, the leaves have just turned yellow and fell off. And this is on what we call an M111 rootstock, which is supposed to be very drought resistant rootstock. And they are suffering for water. Funny thing, the asparagus seem to do well in the drought. They must be tough. They've been in the ground for 3-4 years now, so the roots are down decent and they're growing decent. Beans are doing okay. I never watered the beans or anything. Early on, weeks ago, I've watered the beans, but actually beans are just about getting ready to pick. You can see, so beans must love the dry weather, because these are looking beautiful. Actually, I'll get out and pick these some night or tomorrow night. But those are beautiful yellow beans, just perfect, just actually ready for picking. I have a yellow bean called Gold Rush and a green fillet bean over there, which is a little skinny fella, but it looks like they're all getting ready for picking. I noticed with flowers this summer, oh sorry about my bean crunching, I've noticed with the flowers this summer that there's very little color. The blooms come out on the flowers and they just kind of dry up and disappear. My garlic, this is the reason I'm showing you this old weedy rough bed. A few potatoes growing in here, but this is where I have my garlic growing. Garlic is not too bad, but smaller than normal. During the 6 weeks, June and July, that they really do most of their growing, it didn't rain, so they were quite dry, so they're a little smaller than normal, but not bad. On the flip side, walk past my hay bale here, peppers love it. Look at these are a Hungarian hot wax pepper, but they're looking beautiful. I've picked a few off there already, and that's a pretty nice pepper plant for normally what we grow around here. So hopefully I'll get a batch of hot pepper jelly. And Brendan, if you're watching, there's a row of beets. Beets did well. I've been trying a new variety that keeps a really nice quality green on late through the season. But if you see, we've had drought and dry, and look at that green. They grow beautiful greens. I don't know if it's a hybrid variety or quite what it is, but it's a beautiful green. So that's just a bit of a shout out from me to everybody in the world of YouTube that watches my channel. Here's hoping for rain tonight. If I don't get any, my barrels are all empty. I'm going to have to start hauling more water for the house. I'll try to get a little on the garden to survive, but I don't know if I'll be able to or not. Oh, complete side note, this is on my apple trees. I was to an apple course this spring, and I have 2 new varieties that are growing. I'm going to be starting in my orchard. This little one here is a Bramley seedling, which is a famous apple in Europe and England, but completely unheard of over here. I've never tried a Bramley seedling, never made an apple pie or applesauce or baked apples with it, which I guess what they're most for is good for a bacon apple. But that'd be interesting in a few years if I get to try one of those. And this is a, oh, I always get this one wrong. This is a Williams Pride, which is supposed to be an early apple that tastes decent and keeps well, which is odd for an early apple. So that'll be interesting. Here's a few little apple rootstocks that I have propagating away. So replace a few in the orchard that I've lost. I lost a Honeycrisp this spring due to like a woodworm that's got in the butt of it, and I lost 2 last year to moles, so I'll have a few I need replacing with. But I have a few started, and I got a little nursery bed with a dozen new trees growing in it, so that'll hopefully solve that problem. I'll end with a nice shot on this is a row of cauliflower and a roll of Brussels sprouts, and they do well in the drought. Hardly ever watered them, but they look like they're growing really well, so I'm quite optimistic how they're going to turn out. And I'll show you, I want to show you this rose bush. Drought does funny things to flowers. Generally, I don't do much for roses, but I have a climbing rose along the house that I really like. And it bloomed beautiful this year. And then the flowers, it was like dried rose petals. They normally will pink and fall off, but if you see this one here, they've just all turned brown, and you hear that, they're crispy. So normally they'll pink and the petals will just all fall off, but instead it's like a big dried flower arrangement. So I'll trim this back and just let the new shoots grow up. But if you can see the lawns, the biggest sufferers are cattle this year. The cattle next door have been eating hay for 3 weeks, where they should be on green grass yet. But the fields were mowed weeks and weeks ago, and they're just brown. I see some of the yellow, these rose bushes have been in the ground for 5 years, and so they're well established, well rooted, but yet all turn yellow and dying. So that's the biggest story with this summer here in gardening is drought, drought, drought. So we're really hoping for rain. 60 millimeters would just start to solve the problem if we got it in 2 different storms, but we're calling for 15 or 20 tonight, which has been our best hope for 2 months. If you can see, I'm going to zoom you in if I can do it, but some of the young maple trees, if you see that brown one over there in the center of the screen, you go over and touch the leaves and they are just burnt crispy. So I don't know if the trees, when they're that bad a shape, will bounce back or not, but I do have faith in Mother Nature. Some of the big maples here, if you see the leaves are changing color, I mean those are big established trees, their roots are down deep, but yet the leaves are turning brown and dying on them. So strange, strange summer for a maritime climate. Oh, I'll show you something funny. These are pumpkins that were planted in the 1st of June. They haven't died, but they sure haven't grown. I don't know what they're going to do. Part way through the summer, I just had to admit that there was no way I could lug enough water to keep the garden going. I had to concentrate on work and keeping water to the house and different things like that, and just give up on the garden bit. I don't have an irrigation system, so it was pails of water into barrels, lugging it up into water cans to try to water the garden, and it was just impossible. I tried it for a little bit, and then I just had to finally said no, that was enough. So anyway, not to be too disappointed, I have great faith in Mother Nature. She will provide the water that I need, and I will end up being quite surprised at the end of the season how much I do harvest. I have great faith in that. So here's for me, and on the flip side of all of this gardening misery, if you've been on vacation in Nova Scotia, this summer has been the most fantastic vacation summer. We have a lot of beaches. The beaches were full every day. Nice and dry for people traveling around. Only downside was there's been a fire ban out for quite a while now, so there's been no open campfires. So no campfires for the campers in the evening, but I think they'll survive that if you have nice beach weather. So here's from Nova Scotia, and here's the best to all of you. Have a great one, everybody.